The planet Viralon was always covered in silver mist, floating over its blue crystal forests and shining rivers. Every night the sky glowed with rings of light. And every day, the people of the city of Arathis lived under rules older than memory. Among them lived a girl named Lyra, a name people whispered but never spoke aloud. Lyra was born different. Her skin carried faint blue marks that glowed under the moons. The elders called her cursed, a child touched by the forgotten gods. Her mother had tried to hide her, wrapping her hands in cloth and keeping her inside. But one night, when Lyra was just 8, a neighbor saw the glow through the window and screamed. By morning, the guards came and dragged her away. Since that day, Lyra had lived alone in the ruins beyond the city walls. The ruins were old, older than the city itself, made of dark stone and silent halls. She survived by hunting small creatures and drinking the clean drops that formed on crystal vines. Every night she sat under the stars. Watching the city lights far away, she dreamed of being touched, of someone speaking to her kindly, but no one ever came. People believed even her shadow brought sickness. If a child wandered too close to the ruins, the parents would shout, "Come back before the monster sees you." And Lyra would sit quietly, hugging her knees, wondering what made her a monster. Then one night, the sky tore open with a streak of fire. It wasn't lightning, it was a ship, burning as it fell through the clouds. It screamed across the sky and crashed deep into the forest near her ruins. The ground shook, and the crystals around her pulsed like beating hearts. Lyra ran toward the smoke, her curiosity stronger than her fear. When she reached the wreck, the air was thick with the smell of metal and ozone. She saw something moving inside, a shape crawling from the broken hull. It was not one of her people. His skin was pale, his hair dark and messy. He wore strange armor and had blood running down his arm. Lyra had never seen a human before, but she had heard stories from old radio echoes. Stories about a species that vanished into the stars long ago. The man fell to his knees, gasping, his translator blinking weakly on his collar. Lyra watched him from behind a crystal pillar. Unsure what to do, he looked around, confused, calling out words she barely understood. "Anyone? Please, help," he whispered, his voice fading. Lyra's heart beat fast. She wanted to run, but something in his tone stopped her. He didn't sound like the others who came near the ruins, full of hate or fear. He sounded alone, like her. Slowly, she stepped closer, her glowing marks lighting the fog. When he saw her, his eyes widened. He tried to lift his weapon but dropped it. His voice trembled. "Stay back." "What are you?" Lyra froze. She wanted to speak, but her voice cracked from years of silence. I'm not going to hurt you," she said softly. He blinked in confusion. "You speak Galactic?" She nodded slowly. "Little. I learn from broken machines." The man tried to stand, but his leg gave way and he fell again. Lyra rushed forward without thinking, catching him before he hit the ground. For the first time in her life, she touched another being. His skin was warm, rough, and trembling. He looked up at her, breathing hard. "You're glowing." "I know," she whispered. "They hate me for it." She helped him to a broken stone bench near the ruins. He looked around, realizing where they were. "You live here?" Lyra nodded. "They call me cursed monster, so I stay away." He smiled weakly despite his pain. "Funny, you're the first kind face I've seen here." The words hit her heart like a flame. No one had ever called her kind before. She looked down, unsure how to answer. The wind howled through the ruins, and in the distance alarms began to ring. Lyra's glow had been seen. The city guards were coming. Scanners would soon detect the human life form and her presence beside it. She turned to him, her voice urgent. "You need to go. They will come for you." He shook his head, coughing. "I can't walk, and I'm not leaving you." Lyra's breath caught. "You don't understand. If they find you with me, they'll kill you." He looked at her, pain in his eyes but determination in his voice. "Then we run together." Lyra stared at him. This strange man from the stars, weak and hurt yet unafraid of her. For years she had lived in silence, believing no one would ever look at her without fear. And now here was someone who not only looked but reached out. As the city lights grew closer, she made a choice for once in her life. She would not hide. She grabbed his arm, helped him stand, and whispered, "Follow me." Together, they vanished into the glowing forest. Behind them, drones swept through the air, calling her name like a curse. But Lyra didn't look back. For the first time, she wasn't running from her fate. She was running with it. The forest of Virillon was glowing that night, filled with silver mist and humming crystals. Lyra helped the wounded human Elias walk through the thick fog. His steps slow and heavy. Every few moments he stumbled, and she caught him before he fell. He was taller than her, stronger too, but right now he looked fragile, like someone who had fought too long and lost everything. They stopped near a stream that shimmered faint blue. Lyra made him sit against a smooth crystal wall.
"You need rest," she whispered, but he only smiled weakly. "I
need a doctor," he muttered, then added with a chuckle, "but I guess there aren't many around here." Lyra didn't understand his humor, but she nodded. "No doctors. Only me." She tore a strip from her robe and pressed it against his arm to stop the bleeding. He hissed in pain but didn't move away. For a moment he stared at her glowing hands, the marks moving like liquid light under her skin. He whispered, "How are you? Doing that?" Lyra hesitated. "I don't know. It happens when I feel something strong." Elias tilted his head. "Something strong? Like fear?" She looked away. "Like sadness." For years no one had ever asked her about her power. No one had cared, but this human, broken and lost, didn't flinch when she touched him. He didn't call her monster or curse. He just looked at her as if she was something human, something real. Then came the sound of engines. Low and distant. Lyra froze, her eyes widening. "They are coming," she whispered. Elias looked confused. "Who?" "The city guards," she said, panic in her voice. "They saw us together. They will hunt us both." He grabbed his weapon, though his hands trembled. "Then let them come." Lyra shook her head. "You don't understand. If they find you with me, they will kill you." Elias gave her a tired smile. "Then I'll just have to survive." His words made her chest tighten. In all her years of loneliness, no one had ever chosen to stay near her. She couldn't explain it, but something about this human felt different. He wasn't brave out of pride. He was brave because he refused to abandon someone in pain. The air trembled with searchlights, bright beams cutting through the fog. Lyra grabbed his hand. "Come, I know a place." She led him deeper into the forest, under a curtain of hanging crystals that shimmered like falling stars. The light from the guards grew stronger behind them. Lyra moved faster, her marks glowing brighter as if guiding them through the maze. Finally, they reached a deep fissure in the ground. A narrow opening led into a tunnel beneath the earth. Lyra slipped through first, then helped Elias crawl in behind her. The noise from above faded, replaced by the hum of hidden energy. The tunnel walls pulsed faint blue, alive like veins under skin. Elias looked around in awe. "What is this place?" Lyra whispered, "Old world." "Before my people came here," she touched the wall, and it responded, glowing where her fingers moved. "This place listens to me," she said softly. "But I don't know why." Elias reached out, touching the same spot she did, and for a second the wall glowed twice as bright. Lyra gasped, "It knows you too." He smiled faintly. "Maybe your world likes humans." They shared a brief laugh, the first sound of joy in that heavy night. Then Elias asked, "Why do they hate you so much?" Lyra stared at her glowing hands, her voice low. "They say I was born from the old god's breath, that my light brings sickness." She looked away, her eyes wet. "When I was little, a healer touched my skin, and she fell sick. They said I killed her." Elias was silent for a moment, then said softly, "You didn't kill her, Lyra. Sometimes people fear what they can't explain." His voice was calm, like the gentle waves of the stream outside. Lyra blinked away her tears, whispering, "Why are you not afraid of me?" Elias looked at her and said, "Because I've seen monsters, and you're not one of them." Her breath caught, her heart racing. Those words, simple, kind, felt like sunlight after endless storms. She turned away quickly, afraid to show her trembling smile. The tunnel lights dimmed again. Returning to silence, they stayed there until dawn, listening to the faint rumble of patrols fading away. When the first light reached the entrance, Elias tried to stand, but his leg was still weak. Lyra helped him again, her small hand steady under his weight. He said, "You saved me." "I owe you my life." Lyra shook her head. "No, maybe you saved mine too." Outside, the city alarms echoed across the valley. The council would not rest until they found the human and the cursed girl. Their faces were already marked as traitors on the city screens. But far beneath the glowing mist, Two outcasts were beginning something that would change everything. Lyra looked at Elias as he leaned on her shoulder. His eyes half closed, he whispered, "Where will we go?" She glanced toward the horizon, where the mountains glowed faint gold under the sunrise. "There is a place, deep in the caves. No one dares to go there." Elias smiled weakly. "Then that's perfect." And so they began their journey into the unknown, one step at a time, human and alien side by side. Both hunted, both broken, yet both alive. Neither of them knew it yet. But the touch that joined them that night would soon ignite a fire across worlds, a fire that no fear could ever stop. The path through the underground tunnels was long and full of strange blue light. Lyra and Elias walked carefully, their steps echoing softly against crystal walls that seemed alive. The air was cool but heavy with an energy that hummed like a heartbeat. Every now and then Elias stopped to rest. His wound still raw, Lyra helped him sit beside a smooth crystal pillar that pulsed faint light when she touched it. Elias looked at the glowing pattern spreading across her skin. Fascinated. "It reacts to you," he whispered. "Like it knows who you are." Lyra shook her head slowly. "It frightens me. I don't understand it." Elias smiled gently. "Maybe it doesn't want to harm you. Maybe it wants to protect you." She looked at him, her voice quiet. "Then why does everyone else fear me?" He replied softly, "Because fear is easier than understanding." The tunnel opened into a vast underground chamber, a hidden temple of the old world. Statues of unknown beings stood half buried in stone, their faces long forgotten. In the center of the room stood a black obelisk covered in faint blue veins that pulsed in rhythm with Lyra's skin. Elias stopped, staring in awe. "What is this place?" Lyra approached it slowly, drawn by something she couldn't explain. Her markings glowed brighter with each step, the obelisk answering with its own deep light. Elias felt the air grow heavy with invisible force, the ground trembling slightly. "Lyra, stop," he said softly. "Something's happening." But Lyra couldn't stop. Her eyes wide as tears formed without reason, she reached out, her fingertips touching the stone. Instantly, a surge of energy shot through the room. The light filled every corner, blinding and warm. Elias shielded his face as wind roared around them. When it stopped, Lyra collapsed to her knees. Gasping for air, Elias ran to her, holding her shoulders. "Lyra! Are you okay?" Her eyes glowed for a few seconds, then faded back to normal. She looked dazed but alive. I saw something." "What did you see?"
Elias asked. "I saw—"
"Humans," she whispered. "Your people working beside mine." "Long ago," Elias froze. "That can't be." Lyra nodded, trembling. "They were building this place. Together." They both sat in silence, the truth too big to speak. Elias finally said, "Then maybe your power isn't a curse. It's something left behind, something ancient." Lyra looked at her hands, glowing faintly. "Then why me?" "Maybe because you're the last one who can awaken it," he said softly. Suddenly, a distant rumble echoed through the tunnels. The crystals flickered and dust fell from above. Elias looked up, alarmed. That didn't sound good. Lyra grabbed his arm. Fear in her eyes. "They found us from the far end of the tunnel." Red lights appeared, drones armed and scanning. The High Council's soldiers had followed their trail. "Elias, go," Lyra whispered, pushing him behind a rock, but he refused. "No, I'm not leaving you." The drones fired beams of energy, striking the ground near them. Lyra cried out as one beam grazed her shoulder, her markings flaring bright. Then something strange happened. The light from her body exploded outward, forming a shield that bent the laser beams away. The drone's systems glitched. Their sensors blinking red, Elias stared in disbelief. "You're deflecting the shots!" Lyra screamed. "I can't control it!" The glow became blinding, the air thick with static. Then silence when the light faded. The drones lay on the ground, melted like wax. Elias rushed to Lyra's side, her body weak and trembling. Her glow was fading fast, her breathing shallow. "Lyra, stay with me," he said. Shaking her gently, she whispered, "It hurts when I use it." Elias looked around for anything to help. He tore open his med pack and injected her with a stabilizer. Her breathing steadied, though she was still weak. He looked at the ruined drones and then at her, realization dawning. "Your power. It's not just light, it's some kind of energy control." Lyra opened her eyes slowly. "I don't understand it." Elias nodded. "I think I do. It's ancient tech, maybe from before your people forgot how to use it. He stared at her markings. It's like your body was built to connect with this place. Lyra frowned. But it hurts. It feels like it's eating me inside. Elias clenched his fist. Then we'll find a way to stop that, I promise. Lyra looked at him, her voice soft. Why do you care so much? I'm nothing to you. He smiled sadly. You saved me when you didn't have to. Maybe it's time someone did the same for you. Tears welled in her eyes, but she turned away quickly, not wanting him to see. As they rested near the fading light of the obelisk, Elias began examining one of the broken drones. He noticed a tracking signal still blinking. His face hardened. They'll come again, stronger this time, Lyra whispered. Then we must leave before night. He nodded. But before that, I want to understand your power better. Elias took out his small scanner. Scanning her arm carefully, the device beeped rapidly, showing unreadable energy readings. This energy is unlike anything I've seen, he murmured. It's not magic. It's science beyond our reach, Lyra frowned. Science? He nodded. Yes. Your ancestors weren't cursed, they were advanced. Lyra looked at the markings on her skin again, her fear slowly turning into wonder. Maybe for the first time in her life, she saw her glow not as shame but as meaning, she whispered. Then maybe I was never a monster. Elias smiled warmly. No, Lyra, you were the key all along. Outside, thunder rumbled as storm clouds gathered over the crystal forest. The city's guards were still searching, but deep underground, something old had awakened again. And the girl once called a monster had just begun to discover who she really was. The storm outside the tunnels grew stronger, lightning flashing through the cracks in the stone ceiling. Lyra and Elias had been traveling for hours, deeper into the hidden network of caves. The air was cold, heavy with the scent of minerals and something older, something alive. Elias carried a dim light, but Lyra didn't need it. Her skin glowed softly, guiding their way. They stopped near a quiet pool of glowing water, the surface smooth like glass. Elias set down his pack and sighed, his voice tired but calm. We should rest here for a while. Lyra nodded and sat beside the water, her reflection shimmering with faint blue light. She whispered, Every time I use my power, I feel like it takes a part of me. Elias looked at her with concern. Then we'll find a way to stop it before it hurts you again. He opened a small metal device from his kit, wires and screens flickering softly. What is that? Lyra asked curiously. It's a bioscanner, Elias said. I can read energy patterns. Maybe understand how your body works. He gently held her hand and the scanner buzzed. Showing streams of light across the screen, Elias frowned. Your cells are fused with micro-energy conductors. Like living circuits, Lyra blinked, not understanding. So, I'm a machine? He smiled softly, shaking his head. No, Lyra, you're very human, just evolved differently. She looked down at her glowing hands, her voice trembling. All my life they said I was cursed. They called me a monster. Elias moved closer, his tone firm. You're not a monster, Lyra, you're proof that your people once touched the stars. Her eyes widened. Touched the stars? He nodded. Yes. I think your ancestors were creators of this world, not victims of it. For a moment there was silence, only the soft hum of energy around them. Then Lyra whispered, If that's true, then why do they fear me? Elias sighed, Because truth scares people more than lies, and you are living truth. Those words made her heart ache and heal at the same time. Suddenly, a small crystal creature emerged from the shadows. It looked like a fox made of glass, its body pulsing with soft light. Lyra gasped, A lightling! They disappeared centuries ago. The creature sniffed her hand and rested beside her. Glowing in rhythm with her pulse, Elias watched, amazed. It trusts you, Lyra smiled faintly. They sense energy. It feels my heart. But their peaceful moment ended when a loud echo filled the tunnels. Metal footsteps, deep and synchronized. Elias stood up instantly, pulling his small blaster. Lyra's glow dimmed with fear. The soldiers, she whispered. Elias looked toward the tunnel entrance, his jaw tight. How did they find us again? She closed her eyes. They hid behind a fallen pillar as more soldiers entered the chamber. Elias adjusted his scanner and attached it to her arm. Focus, he said gently. Don't fight the energy, guide it. Lyra nodded weakly. Closing her eyes, the glow around her steadied. soft and rhythmic like a heartbeat. Elias watched the scanner display shifting patterns, aligning perfectly. "You're doing it," he whispered. "You're controlling it." She opened her eyes, the blue light now calm and steady. The air around them shimmered, bending light and sound. When the soldiers turned their sensors toward them, the readings vanished completely. "They can't see us," Elias realized. "You made us invisible." Lyra smiled faintly. "I did it?" He nodded proudly. "You did." The soldiers passed by, confused, scanning the wrong direction. Once they were gone, Lyra dropped the energy field and leaned against the wall. Exhausted, Elias helped her sit down again, his tone soft. "You just did what no one believed was possible." She looked at him with tired wonder. "You taught me not to fear it." He smiled gently. "No, you taught yourself. I only reminded you who you are." The lightling creature returned, curling near Lyra's feet. Its glow soft and warm for the first time. She felt peace inside her heart. The word monster no longer hurt. It felt small, meaningless, because now she knew the truth. Outside the tunnels, the High Council watched from their ships. One of the generals spoke into his communicator. "She has awakened the old energy. We must destroy her before it spreads," another voice replied coldly. "And the human? Capture him alive, he knows too much." Back inside the caves, Elias packed his tools and turned to Lyra. "They'll keep hunting us," he said quietly. Lyra looked toward the tunnel's glowing exit, her eyes filled with strength. "Then let them come," she said softly. "This time, I'm not hiding." The glow from her markings brightened again. Reflecting on the crystal walls, Elias smiled at her courage. "You're starting to sound human." Lyra smiled back. "Or maybe humans are finally starting to sound like me." They walked side by side toward the unknown light, the cave behind them silent, the future ahead uncertain. But something had changed forever. The girl once called a monster had found her truth, and the human who didn't run had found his purpose. Together, they were no longer outcasts. They were the beginning of something powerful, something that would make the galaxy remember what humanity truly meant. The next morning, the sky over Virelon was red. Heavy with storm clouds, Lyra and Elias stood on the edge of a mountain ledge, looking down at the glowing city of Arathis far below. The wind was cold, carrying the distant sound of sirens and engines. Elias tightened the strap of his pack and said quietly, "They'll be expecting us to run." "So we do the opposite," Lyra frowned. "You mean go toward them?" He nodded. "Yes, straight to the council. Before they send their army to destroy the whole forest." Lyra hesitated, fear flickering in her bright eyes. "They will kill you if you're caught." Elias smiled softly. "I've been close to death before, but I'm not letting them hunt you like an animal." Her chest tightened. "You don't owe me anything." "Elias," he looked at her firmly. "You saved my life, Lyra." "That's reason enough." They moved carefully down the hidden paths, their steps silent on the crystal stones. Everywhere they looked, drones hovered in the air, scanning for movement. Lyra's markings glowed faintly as she whispered, "They know I'm alive," Elias replied. "Then let's make them see why." By dusk, they reached the outskirts of the city. The great towers of Arathis shimmered with gold and silver light, powered by the same energy that flowed in Lyra's veins. The city walls were guarded by soldiers in silver armor, their helmets glowing with red visors. Elias found a way through a drainage tunnel beneath the city. It was narrow, dark, and smelled of metal and dust, but it led them to the inner plaza, right beneath the council hall. Lyra could feel the vibrations in the ground, hundreds of guards above them, waiting. "Elias," she whispered, "this is dangerous." He smiled faintly. "Everything worth doing is—" They climbed up through the old service shafts, emerging into a large, empty chamber filled with ancient carvings. The walls told stories of a time when humans and Virelons once lived together. Lyra traced her fingers over the symbols. "It's true," she said softly. "They were here. Your people helped build our world," Elias nodded. "And your people helped us survive. Maybe that's why they fear the truth now." Before Lyra could answer, the room filled with light. Dozens of guards surrounded them, weapons drawn. A tall figure stepped forward, High Chancellor Malus, his face calm but cold. "Lyra of the old blood," he said slowly. "You were ordered to remain exiled. And yet here you stand, bringing a human into our sacred city." Lyra held her ground. "You call me cursed, but you use the same energy that lives inside me to power your world." The Chancellor's eyes hardened. That power belongs to the council, not to a child born from impurity. Elias stepped forward. You're using her people's energy and calling her the monster? That's hypocrisy. The guards aimed their weapons instantly. The Chancellor looked at Elias with disgust. You dare speak human? Your kind vanished centuries ago and it should have stayed that way. Elias clenched his fists. Then maybe it's time humanity returned. Malus raised his hand, and the guards fired. Elias pushed Lyra behind a column as energy blasts filled the room. The air shimmered with heat, and Lyra screamed as Elias fell to one knee. A beam grazing his shoulder. Stop! She cried, her markings bursting into light. The ground shook violently, crystal shards rising like shields around them, blocking the gunfire. Her voice echoed through the hall. You use my blood to build your cities, yet you call me a curse? The soldiers froze, staring at her glowing form. Radiant and fierce, Malus shouted, Contain her now! But before they could act, Lyra lifted her hands and the weapons melted into dust. The light from her body filled the hall, blinding everyone. Elias tried to reach her, shouting, Lyra! Stop! You'll burn yourself out. Her energy flared higher, her pain mixing with rage. She saw flashes of her childhood, stones thrown, doors closed, people screaming, Monster! Tears streamed down her face as she shouted, You call me a monster, then see the monster you made. The entire council chamber trembled as pillars cracked and walls shattered. Elias stumbled toward her, his voice weak but steady. Lyra. Look at me. She turned, her glowing eyes filled with sorrow. They'll kill you. Because of me. He shook his head. Let them try. Just don't lose yourself. For a moment, their hands touched and the light around her calmed. The energy that had been raging turned into a soft blue glow. Her heartbeat slowed and the tremors faded. But before they could escape, a hidden drone fired a containment beam. It struck Elias from behind, wrapping him in an energy field. He screamed as electricity surged through him, collapsing to the floor. Elias, Lyra cried, running toward him. The Chancellor smirked. The human is yours no longer, cursed one. His punishment will be a lesson to your kind. Guards dragged Elias away, his eyes meeting hers one last time. Don't let them break you, he whispered before vanishing behind the steel doors. Lyra fell to her knees, shaking, the chamber echoing with silence. Tears fell from her eyes, glowing as they hit the floor. The Chancellor turned away, speaking coldly. Prepare the execution. At dawn. The guards left, leaving Lyra alone in a dark cell made of crystal walls that absorbed her power. She sat in silence, her heart heavy, whispering to herself, They can cage my body, but they will never cage the truth. She closed her eyes, feeling the faint hum of energy deep beneath the city. The old power still answered her, weak but alive. And as dawn approached, the markings on her skin began to glow again. Brighter than before, stronger than fear, stronger than pain. The world had taken everything from her. Now she would take back the sky. The sun rose weakly over the city of Arathis, hidden behind thick clouds. The people gathered in the central square, silent and afraid. Word had spread, the cursed one would be judged that morning, and the human who touched her would face death. High above the square, the council tower shone cold and white. Inside its upper chamber, Elias hung suspended in a containment field, weak but alive. The energy lines wrapped around him like burning chains. Guards stood nearby. Their eyes fixed forward, he tried to move, but pain shot through his body. All he could whisper was her name, Lyra. Deep below the city, inside her crystal cell, Lyra sat with her head bowed. The walls around her pulsed faintly. Draining her power away each time she moved, she felt empty, cold and lost. But beneath her fear, a fire still burned. She could feel it. The same energy she had awakened in the old ruins, it was sleeping under the city, humming softly like a heartbeat waiting. Lyra, a voice whispered suddenly through the cracks of the crystal. She opened her eyes sharply. Who's there? It was faint, like an echo, yet familiar. Follow the sound. Follow the light beneath, the voice said. She placed her hands on the floor, and the markings on her skin flickered. The ground responded, glowing in return. It was the old energy, the same that had saved Elias before, and now it called her name. She pressed her palms harder. whispering, "If you can hear me, help me save him." The walls around her cracked with a high-pitched sound, then shattered completely in a burst of blue light. The guards outside turned in shock. But Lyra stepped through the smoke, glowing like a living star. Her voice calm but strong, "Move, or be moved." When they fired their weapons, the beams curved away. The light around her absorbed every shot, turning the energy into a wave of heat that melted the floor. In seconds, the corridor was silent. Only her soft steps echoed as she walked forward. Up above, Elias saw the same glow rising from the lower levels. His heart pounded with both hope and fear. "Lyra, you crazy girl," he whispered with a weak smile. The guards noticed the flicker in the power grid. One shouted, "Sir, energy readings are unstable." Chancellor Malus stood near the control console, eyes narrow. "Seal the core and prepare for overload if necessary." "I will not let her reach him." The entire tower shook as Lyra entered the central lift shaft. She looked up, hundreds of meters of steel and light. Her energy surged through her veins, forming glowing wings of plasma behind her. In one heartbeat, she flew upward like a comet. Every level she passed dimmed as her energy drained the tower's lights. When she reached the council chamber, the doors exploded open in a wave of blue fire. Elias looked up weakly, whispering, "You came." Lyra landed beside him, her glow soft but fierce. "I told you I wouldn't hide again," she said, touching the containment field. The field sparked violently, shocking her hand. Elias shouted, "No." "It'll kill you." Lyra shook her head. "Not if I become stronger." She closed her eyes and reached deep into the energy below the city. The same power that built Arathis centuries ago. The ground trembled as the old machines awakened. Blue light spread through the walls, through every street and tower. People outside gasped as the city itself began to glow. The power that once created their world now answered to her. Chancellor Malus screamed, "Shut it down. Destroy her before she destroys us all." He raised his weapon and fired directly at her heart. But the beam vanished into her chest. Consumed by light, Lyra looked at him with tears in her eyes. "You destroyed your own world out of fear." She raised her hands, and the energy around her formed a radiant pulse. The containment field around Elias shattered into pieces. Releasing him at last, Elias fell forward weak, and she caught him before he hit the ground. Her arms glowed as she poured her strength into healing him. He looked up at her, half-conscious. "Lyra, your body can't handle this much power." She smiled softly. "Then I'll give it everything I have." The Chancellor stumbled back, fear finally showing in his eyes. The room began to crack, the energy inside the tower building to dangerous levels. "Lyra, the reactors," Elias shouted. "They're overloading! The city will explode." Lyra's eyes glowed brighter. "Then let me stop it." Before he could answer, she kissed his forehead gently. "Thank you for seeing me." "Not as a monster," she whispered. She lifted herself into the air. Rising toward the heart of the energy core, the entire city looked up as the sky filled with blinding blue light. Her body became part of the energy flow, her soul merging with the network of the planet itself. Every crystal, every street, every light pulsed with her heartbeat. The overload reversed, the fires dimmed, and silence fell. Then slowly, the clouds parted, the storm faded, replaced by a golden dawn. Elias stood in the ruins of the council tower. Watching as the light drifted around him, he whispered, "Lyra." Her voice echoed softly through the wind. "I'm still here, in every light, in every breath of this world." Tears fell down his face, but he smiled. She had saved him, saved the city, and saved the people who once feared her down below. The citizens stepped out of their homes. The once gray city now shone with a calm, living glow. Children laughed, touching the bright walls that no longer burned. And somewhere in that gentle light they felt warmth, a presence. Kind and familiar, Lyra was gone. Yet she was everywhere. The girl once called a curse had become the planet's guardian. And her light, once feared, had become the world's greatest gift. Elias stood among the ruins, the light dancing across his hands. He looked to the sky and whispered, "You didn't destroy the world, Lyra. You saved it." The storm had ended. The city of Arathis was silent, its towers glowing softly in the new light. The people stood in awe as the energy that once burned their world now flowed gently through the streets. No explosions, no darkness, only peace. The cursed glow they once feared had become the light that warmed their homes, high above the city's ruins. Elias stood alone, staring at the rising sun. His face was tired, his eyes red, but his heart was full of something new. Hope. The marks of light that once belonged to Lyra now shimmered faintly across his hands. He could still hear her voice in the wind, soft and warm. "I'm still here, Elias," it whispered. "Don't let them forget days past." The council was gone, its great hall turned to ash. But the people were free for the first time in centuries. They rebuilt their homes, repaired the broken towers, and planted gardens where machines once stood. They no longer called Lyra cursed. They called her the Lightkeeper, the one who gave her life so they could live. Elias walked among them, helping where he could. He taught the children how to harness small pieces of the new energy without fear. He built small lights that glowed gently in their homes, lights powered by Lyra's gift. And every night when the twin moons rose, the people gathered to listen to his stories. Stories of the girl who was called a monster but became their savior. He spoke softly. She was never a curse, only a mirror, showing us what we were too afraid to see. The children would sit quietly, eyes wide as he told them how Lyra had faced an entire world and forgave it. Even the elders bowed their heads when they heard her name, because they knew, without her, the city would have burned to dust. But even as peace returned, Elias couldn't rest. He often walked into the forest beyond the city, searching the glowing valleys where it had all begun. He found the ruins of the old temple where Lyra once touched the black obelisk. It still pulsed faint blue as if breathing. He knelt before it and whispered, "You kept her safe, didn't you?" The light shimmered faintly like a heartbeat in reply. He placed his hand against the cold stone. A warmth spread through his arm, and suddenly he felt her again, her voice, clear as day, echoing in his mind. "Elias, you kept your promise," tears filled his eyes. "Lyra, is it really you?" The light grew brighter, forming her faint outline, soft, glowing, ethereal. She smiled, her eyes kind. "You gave them a future. You made them see." Elias reached out, his hand trembling, but his fingers passed through her light. He whispered, "I couldn't save you." Her expression softened. "You did. You saved me from loneliness." The words struck deep into his heart. She looked toward the sky and said, "This world will heal now, but it needs you to protect it." Elias nodded slowly. "Then I'll protect it, for both of us." Her form began to fade, her last words carried by the wind. "Wherever there is light, I'll be there." Years passed, the world changed. The forest grew thick again, the skies clear. The energy of Virelon became pure and stable, no longer a weapon but a source of life. And Elias became known as the Keeper of the Light, the man who walked with the spirit of a girl once called a monster. He grew old, but his spirit never dimmed. When he finally passed away, he was buried beneath the same crystal tree where they had first met. His tomb was carved with words in both human and Virelon script. He touched the monster and found a soul instead. Centuries later, when explorers from distant worlds arrived on Virelon, they found a city that glowed like a living star. They asked the people what powered their world, and the people smiled, pointing to the sky. "It is the Lightkeeper," they said, "the one who saved us from our fear." In time, the story spread far beyond Virelon, told in ships crossing galaxies. In colonies on distant moons everywhere, beings of every kind heard the same legend, of a girl born with cursed light, and a human who dared to see her as something more. They said her spirit still traveled among the stars, guiding lost travelers, lighting paths through endless night. And sometimes when a star flickered too brightly, pilots would whisper, "That's Lyra's light. She's still watching." No one forgot the human either. They spoke his name with pride, saying, "He was the first to touch what others feared." And in doing so, he changed the galaxy. In time, their story became more than history. It became faith, a promise that no light, no matter how strange, should ever be feared again. On the 1000th cycle of the Dawn Festival, the people of Virelon gathered beneath the twin moons to honor them. Children carried glowing flowers, and elders lit sky lanterns that floated into the heavens. Elias's words were carved into the base of the new temple. Monsters do not exist. Only hearts that have never been understood. As the lanterns rose higher, one light stayed brighter than the rest. It shimmered, then split into two, one blue, one gold. The people gasped softly, for they knew somewhere beyond the stars, the Lightkeeper and the human walked together again, their hands intertwined, guiding the galaxies that once feared them. And so the legend lived on, the girl once called a monster, and the man who touched her heart, the light that saved a world, and changed forever how the universe saw humanity.